Did Disney really drop the mic or did they drop the ball? Culture Casino and Script Doctor join us this morning on Midnight's Edge in the Morning. It's another week. Hello, kids. How you doing out there in YouTube land? I am Tom Connors. With me, as always, is the boss man, Andre.
Greetings, everyone. Hope you're all having a great day.
Yes, we are starting a new week once again. With us, we have two guests with us. Our fifth Beatle, as we call him from time to time. He has a prescription for all your entertainment needs, the Script Doctor.
Good morning.
And Andre is vibrating.
Yeah, I'll do something about that right now in this moment.
And also joining us, Culture Casino. How you doing, bud?
Well, I'm doing wonderful. This has been an interesting start to my day. But I'm excited. Let's dive right into it. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, there's a method to our madness. Why we have both of you here. Culture, you of course have a lot of insight when it comes to Disney. Script, of course, you have a lot of insight when it comes to the behind the scenes kind of things in the industry. So I think you guys are perfect for a conversation today, since there wasn't a huge bunch of news that came out over the weekend. I think the biggest news has been whether or not, Disney managed to rattle the cages of AT&T, or did AT&T really kind of win this week by decimating theaters in the process of everything else. And again, this is a long conversation. We also have we're going to talk a little bit about their stock and some other things, but hey, we got a super chat right off the bat. So why don't we address that, Andre, real quick?
Yeah, let's do that real quick. Alex Acerra says, what are the chances of OG cast recast and characters like Mara, Jade, and the like showing up, especially if the erasure is hypothetically happening? Well, what do you think?
That's a good question. I mean, a lot of people are doing the fan casting with what's his face from Winter Soldier.
Sebastian Stan, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe.
It really just comes down to the fact that if whoever's running Disney at that time wants to do it. Right now, we've seen what their air quotes plan is, and yeah, it's kind of a little bit too early to say at this moment. But I mean, it's a good question. I think we had more information to give it an answer.
Yeah, I don't think we have enough information at this point in time, and pretty much all of the cards are on the table as far as what Disney has going forward. There are, as Script knows, 2 to 5 other shows that were not revealed. A bunch of the things that were revealed along the way, as far as the Star Wars stuff goes. A lot of those people weren't prepared for the reveal that came out of Disney over the Investor Day. So we will, of course, dive into that, I'm sure.
Absolutely. As for me, I actually wouldn't rule it out that as they seem to be intent on exploring the immediate post-episode 6 era, as per our reporting, I would not be surprised if they were to recast characters with, for instance, Sebastian Stan. I actually would not be surprised if that were to happen. Like they already did it with Han Solo. So yeah, why not? And they're already doing it with Lando Calrissian, who's getting his own series. So why not? I would be surprised if they did. More surprised if they didn't than if they did.
I don't know if they're recasting Solo. I think they're just using what's his face again.
They're using Donald Glover again. But that's like the thing I mean, that they have already done a recasting once and they're sticking with it. So why stop there? They've recast Lando, they've recast Han. Why not take it one step further and have, for instance, Luke show up in The Mandalorian or something like that?
There's one caveat to that, though. All the times we've seen all characters recast, and this even includes, prior to Disney, have always been when they're a younger version. You know what I mean? It's never been we've never seen anybody recast in a time period where we've seen them in another, already at that age. Does that make sense?
First time for everything.
I know. I'm just saying, I mean, it's one thing to get somebody who looks and sounds kind of like Harrison Ford to play a young Han Solo. It's completely different to be
Yeah, if they
bringing
actually
somebody
found
in.
if
Yeah.
yeah, if they actually found someone that looked like Harrison Ford, you mean?
Well, they had a chance with that one kid if they would have just kept
They had
it.
a chance with that
did
one
have a
kid.
chance.
Oh, the Baby Driver actor. I can't remember
Well,
his
not
name.
him. No, the other one.
I forgot.
The
I
one who
forgot
like
his
did that
name.
YouTube audition that
Yeah.
Anthony
circulated around for a while.
Ingruber, or what is his name? Ingruber?
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. Anthony Ingruber. Yeah, well, what a
Ingruber.
wasted opportunity. Because like like this guy, this what's he called, like Diefenbacher or something like that. What, I don't even remember his name, but he's not a
Orville
bad
Redenbacher.
actor. But he's yeah, that's the one. But to me, he looks nothing like Harrison Ford. Like I can't see him in a role. I'm like, this is not Han Solo, and I say that as a non-fan.
Yeah,
Well,
and
Aaron-
same with Adam Driver. He didn't look like a combination between Harrison Ford or Carrie Fisher at all. It's just,
No.
Adam Driver? I thought
Yeah.
he looked a lot like kind of like a young Harrison Ford, actually. Especially
like what, had the mumps?
Yeah,
I don't know.
and a giant beak.
Well, Harrison Ford don't have the smallest nose. I mean, but anyway, Aaron C. Actually, it's funny you asked this because this is actually one of our big topics this morning. How the hell is Disney stock at $171? It actually went down. Was it 185? I think this morning, wasn't it? Culture when the things opened up, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, and then they got a little smack down by BMO, but
They cannot be turning a profit this year. Financial shenanigans. Is that well, that's the question we're going to try and answer today. I don't know if we'll be able to answer it per se, but we'll
We
definitely
can certainly
discuss it.
highlight the discussion. That's one thing we can do.
there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of one thing we were pointing at last week, guys, with this whole Disney thing was, their big announcements have seemed to help with their stocks, but outside of that, what have we really seen out of Disney Plus so far?
Well, that whole thing was about Disney Plus, and that was kind of like its own shortfallings. Because what are the rest of the plans for Disney during that investor call? There wasn't many things really talked about other than their show lineup.
No, in fact, 4 hours of and again, I'm going to say it. This looked like a legacy media upfront event where you would present all the fall shows.
Yeah,
And it didn't look, again, it didn't, as far as the pomp and the circumstance and everything else that went around with this thing, it was all presentation of all of our eggs are in this one basket because we have nothing else positive to talk about with our company right now.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Culture. Like, I think you hit the nail on the head. All their eggs are in one basket. This article we've got here kind of does highlight one thing that could help Disney out, but that's a big if. And this talks about the stock, as we were just pointing out. But this talks about the idea that things could improve for Disney if the vaccination goes well and all that kind of stuff, and they can actually reopen the parks. But that's a big if.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Like all their eggs are in this Disney Plus basket right now.
They are indeed. In this moment, Disney is effectively a streamer.
That's probably the best way to say it at the moment. I mean, they have been for nearly a year at this point, and it doesn't look like if everything that I'm hearing is going the way that it's going to go, it doesn't look like it'll get any better for them as far as the return to somewhat of a normal operational schedule for their theme parks globally until maybe even this summer 2021. Does that sound good to you guys?
And you know what that sounds to me? That sounds to me like an unrealistically hopeful scenario.
Oh,
That's
it
what I'm
is.
thinking.
It is. That's the best they have to hope for at the moment. It's been, it's been an odd situation. And I've been on record multiple times here and other places, but primarily here with Tom saying, Disney gets all of its, additional revenue, the revenue that it uses to buy back stocks, the revenue that it uses to pay dividends from parks, products, and experiences. The media side of things really wasn't the coach leader when it came to, their financial health. So they're still in trouble. And I know we want to talk at length about, the interactions between Warner and Netflix and all these other things, but they're in a bigger part of trouble than anybody really wants to admit, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, their media and film production wing was primarily an advertisement for their parks. That's the model that they had for all this time. If they could make a lot of money of it theatrically, that was a bonus, but it was all about setting up all the new experiences that they use at the parks to get people in all the time.
Yeah, because that's like the thing. That was what was relatively unique about Disney. About Disney, that their business was creating magic moments, but the parks were the cornerstone of the operation. They were in the parks business, and everything else that was some very nice diversification that produced some very welcome bonus billions on the side. But they were bonus billions on the side. And now suddenly, their newest little thing, the streaming, the lost leader really up until this point, now suddenly has to become the one thing that has to salvage the rest of the company, because their entire core business that used to be the envy of the rest of the industry has suddenly turned into a liability, a money drain, rather than a share savings agreement that just puts money into their coffers monthly. And that's not the case anymore. And who knows how long it'll take before it'll be that again. That could be many years. And can they make it that long?
Just an idea. Basically, the parks make up like 40% of their entire revenue stream, basically. So, like, I mean, and that's everything. So that's the biggest chunk right there. Like,
and not only that, that's 40%, but how many additional percent of their revenue stream is dependent on people not social distancing, going to their hotels, going to their cruises,
You've basically taken 40% of your income and turned it into 0% of your income now. Like, they have no income from that pie. That's the point you're getting.
But that's like the 40%. But other than that, like another 55% is going to be compromised by the mere social distancing.
Well, because that's their movies. They're the only thing that's not hurting would be their streaming services, and I mean, they may still have they obviously still have all their television deals, but they're not making any shows right now, or at least not to the normal level. And the same difference goes for any of their merchandise. I got to believe most of their merchandise is down a little bit, even though I did see they announced the next line of Star Wars Black Series figures. They're all from The Mandalorian.
Oh, I bet there's a Boba Fett figure just around the corner.
Actually, no. Well, they're not Boba Fett. It's just they're all side stormtrooper characters and shit like that. But yeah, it's a pretty lackluster choice of toys. Like, it's 4 figures there's like a dark trooper, one of the stormtrooper, some other stormtrooper, but yeah, they're all Mandalorian based, I guess.
Wow. Look, to me, it looks rather bleak. Again, just pointing towards the fact that everything that they presented for their investors to consume, for the most part, were media properties. I mean, they didn't toot the horn of any of their media networks per se. They focused primarily on streaming. Again, I mean, to me, the writing's on the wall. So they have one source at this point in time, and it's not being supported, as Andre said, by any of the ancillary sources that normally, build revenue.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're waiting for a bailout.
Yeah, they and the entire rest of the industry.
And they've also got that FEC investigation was in the shadows right behind them too, that they're trying to bury. But that's
over 2 years of that right now.
Over 2 years of that, yeah, and it's still going to go. It's going to keep going, actually.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to be as buried in the culture of Disney as I was and as I have been in the past. It's hard for me to separate that love and that passion for it. But boy, recently it's been a lot easier. It's been really easy to set that aside and go, man, things are looking bad. But
yeah. But really, I mean, I guess to not switch gears, but kind of change course a little bit here on the conversation side of things. This stock drop, I mean, does it surprise any of us, especially considering, I mean, the main question we brought up to begin with was, did they really drop the mic on Warner Brothers, or did Warner Brothers really just push the nuke button on this entire fucking thing? I think that's the big question, I guess, more or less. I mean, I kind of answering the question within the question, but uh, I mean, it is open for discussion. I mean, that's my point of view on it. I just don't. It felt very lackluster to me. Like you got Bob Iger sitting there going, "Oh, we're all about quality over quantity." Yet, then why the fuck are you announcing 10 Star Wars projects, 15 Marvel projects, God knows how many remakes and reboots as far as your other crap goes? And not one of those Pixar movies looked even remotely interesting to me. And one of them is literally about a girl who turns into a red panda because she's going through puberty. When she gets excited, she turns. I'm not even going to get into that one.
It's a very childish version of the Incredible Hulk.
That's not what I was thinking. More so,
I know.
Yeah. Anyway, like I just why? I mean, what did they really announce here that really blew anybody's fucking socks off? Fantastic Four?
No.
Well, you can tell with the desperation by saying we're bringing Hayden Christensen back and we're going to put him in the Darth Vader suit for 90% of the series, which is pointless. And they don't even announce if James Earl Jones is coming back to the voice, which he most likely will be doing, depending on when they start shooting. So, like, what's the point in bringing the Anakin Skywalker actor back when you're not really even needing to use him in your show, given the time period?
Yeah.
It's desperation. It's stunt casting to a point.
Right.
I think that we see part of this in the fall in share price as well. And Tom, you found an article from the Hollywood Reporter with basically one analyst saying that, yeah, he in not so many words, he has more faith in Netflix going forward. Because many in our community used terms that, like, yeah, this was a proper mic drop and everything like that, and no one stands a chance against Disney. But I think that I think
that's an arrogant presumption, yeah.
I don't know that the market agrees with that because, yeah, they were able to get away with it once. That they could, like, oh, look at these numbers that we have right here. And then the share price, that of course that increased based upon that and the promise of, well, if they really can do what Netflix did, then that's like vicinity of 20 billion a year's revenue right there. And if they can get it to that, then basically everything is sorted. However, I think that this time many sees that this is all they have. They can milk Marvel and they can milk Star Wars and they can do all of these projects. And of course, there's some level of enthusiasm there. Like if you just harken back to our own live stream from Friday, we were excited for a couple of those things, but only a couple. And how much excitement is there really? How much can they milk this? And I think that is something that many investors see as well, that they have put all their eggs in one basket, and but are those eggs so enticing as they need to be in order to survive against not just Netflix, but against Amazon, against Apple? Like, they're not in the race, but just wait until they drop Foundation and a whole slew of other things they probably have planned. Just wait until Netflix announces their response to them losing so much content to both Warner and to Disney. Wait until not Suicide Squad, but until the Snyder Cut hits, which apparently is going to be in Mars, much earlier than anyone expected. And then what they have to go up against is this, and most of this stuff isn't going to come for years yet.
Yeah.
We're supposedly getting another version of Batman v Superman too. I don't know if you heard about that. But
oh boy.
No, like, I think that's the biggest problem you have here is the biggest thing they dropped being that, you know, Hayden Christensen was coming back has been met with mostly like head scratching, not because he's coming back, but because she's like, it's the rematch we've all been waiting for. It's like,
we saw that 43 years ago.
43 years ago in Star Wars. I'm not so sure what this is implying here, but
As I said before,
yeah.
I hate it when they do that, when they make up some bullcrap rematch or match in the first place and say, this is what we've all been waiting for 30 years or something. They did this when Batman v Superman came out. Like, this is the matchup we've all been waiting for. Have we? I had never been waiting for Batman versus Superman.
No.
Well,
I don't know how many else had. It was many, according to the studio's PR department and anyone parroting it, but I never met the person that actually wanted that.
Justice League is a different story, but yeah, you're right. And no, I think that the issue we have here is that they're going to use a little loophole that in Star Wars you have the Vader going, I've sensed something I haven't felt since, and then he doesn't finish what he says. And then he just says, the last time I met you, I was but the learner, but now I'm the master, blah, 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 implying that the last time they met would have been episode 3, but they're going to probably try and piggyback off of, oh, well, they didn't specifically say that was the last time they met. And they're going to try and fudge that line, I believe.
Yeah, I can see them doing that.
Absolutely. And that's a way to, and they can get away with that. They can get away with that. Absolutely.
Ultimately they were going about breaking canon again. I mean, again, we can talk about this 1,000 times, but they have no trouble breaking original story canon along with anything that even they have created. They at this point nothing is sacred when it comes to a timeline, a canon, or anything when it comes to any of these modern creators. So
well, here's the speculation that I would propose. Do you suspect that because Ewan McGregor has said he's going to other planets, do you suspect that Luke is going to join him on one of these things, which is why Luke is always constantly wanting to get off of Tatooine? Because he's seen a little bit of what the galaxy is like and realizes that Tatooine, there's nothing here for him.
See, that would imply that they know each other even better than they seem to know each other in Star Wars, which is like Luke treats him like that crazy old guy who lives down the street that everybody tells you to stay the fuck out of his yard.
Pretty much, yeah. But he knows a little bit about him, yeah.
Exactly, but he doesn't act like they've ever really met or really talked per se, even.
Yeah,
like
it's that
you're old Ben or whatever. Like everybody knows him, but yeah, kind of like I said, that creepy old guy down the street or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's that kooky hermit that your parents say, stay off his yard. He's grumpy or whatever, and we all had that person in the neighborhood that your parents wanted you to steer clear of. And old Ben, that's what old Ben was. And Luke, for all from everything that we know just from that movie, and again, the movie isn't not all encompassing, but he has honored the request to stay away from this person, right?
Well, not only that, whatever he probably knows about Ben is pretty much probably built up by Owen. And Lord knows what Owen's put in his head just because he doesn't want him to go off on this quest that he knows he's destined to basically go on.
Right.
Yeah. No, there's many things that they can do, and hopefully don't play around with it too much. But it'll be interesting to see what they will do. And the most interesting thing is that was kind of like the highlight of their entire upcoming Star Wars slate. Was that, or does anyone disagree? Was there anything?
No, that was pretty much
Obi-Wan show. Because that's like the one thing that they had. Because to me, it was like bunch of drivel. No one cares.
Pretty much.
And Hayden is coming back. Yay! And that's actually pretty cool. And that makes me interested for the Obi-Wan show that I personally had written off. So it made me interested in that. That's
made me less interested, to be honest with you.
Me too.
Really?
I'm more ambivalent.
No, because they're gonna fuck up the canon.
Yeah,
you got a situation here where these two have not seen each other since Obi-Wan left. Supposedly, this is the last time
Luke was born, technically.
Yeah, basically, since he left him laying at the side of the fucking lava pit there, dying. That's the last time Obi-Wan supposedly saw him, as far as we know, and that's what makes that meeting in Star Wars mean something. If you add another fight in between there,
takes it away.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, not only that.
That's a good point. Like
because what's going to happen? Vader's going to have to lose the fight, right? So, which means that Vader lost against him twice. And when you look at it throughout the entirety of the series, I mean, Vader, he kills Obi-Wan in Star Wars, but that's because Obi-Wan lets him like that. So it's still Vader still loses across the entire spectrum of things, even more so. It's now 3 times the charm.
Yeah, it's kind of stupid. Well, then you see, the show should be about, if anything, they should bring back the kid who played Owen. And what it should be about is like Owen and Obi-Wan have to team up to stop like a bounty hunter or something that had heard the rumor of a possible Skywalker offspring being on the outer skirts on Tatooine, and they basically got to fight off, and
the story should be the dividing wedge between Obi-Wan and Owen.
Exactly.
Because
why Owen
of
doesn't like him. Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, script.
Because there's nothing at the end of Revenge of the Sith that would indicate that Owen and Beru hate Obi-Wan, right? In that entire story. So you'd expect that there'd be some type of friendship in those early years, but then something has to happen to put a divide where Obi-Wan, yes, is cast aside and not allowed to be involved, as it was speculated he would be at the end of Revenge of the Sith, right? So you have that change. There's a story there that doesn't violate canon and is also quite interesting. What horrible thing could have happened that would make Owen this way? Would it be the revelation that Darth Vader is is Anakin Skywalker? Because no one really knows that in the galaxy.
Well, not only that, it's just as simple as, look, you're just putting this kid in danger being here.
Yeah.
The idea that you guys have in your head that this kid is going to save the universe is preposterous. You just got to have him from that angle. It's like you're putting the weight of the universe on this kid's shoulders. Come on, guys. He's, that's the way he's probably going to feel towards Ben. And then, he's got to realize, that it's going to be dangerous if anybody ever finds out about him, and at the same time, like you said, it causes like a rift between the two of them to where that's why he's always kind of bad mouthing Ben, or, that's kind of the implications we have from Luke, is that he's kind of always called him crazy old Ben, kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that I agree. That's a really, really good point, and I hadn't quite considered that. But yeah, of course, it's going to mess up canon completely. My worry, though, which is actually a bigger worry, is that they're going to go all out Picard. Like, I don't know exactly how much influence Kathleen Kennedy has over proceedings, but if this is more of her doing than it is Jon Favreau's doing, then my worry is that this is a great way for her to ruin Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi and Beru and Owen and young Luke Skywalker all in one fell swoop. That's my biggest worry here.
Well, and the other problem we have here is Luke's going to be about 10 years old, because this is supposed to take place 10 years after Episode 3 and 10 years before Episode 4 is my...
That's quite old. That's quite old enough for Kathleen Kennedy to infuse some agenda on him and find a way to ruin him forever afterwards by fundamentally changing some part of the character. So that's kind of like one of the things that I'm worried about. So because that I honestly don't know. That's what I would like to know here, is exactly on all of these projects, how much of it is Jon Favreau,
Jon Favreau
is Kathleen Kennedy, because she's the one that was there as the head of CEO, taking all the credit, pretending to be oh so good, when in reality it's Jon Favreau. That's the one person that's saving all the Star Wars.
Oh yeah, but that's just production 101. Like, if the director or the showrunner has a successful show, it's really because the producer said yes.
On paper, though, the only shows that Favreau has anything to do with that we're looking at here is Rangers and Ahsoka.
Well, and Mandalorian. And
besides that,
that even doesn't count, because that may be show you 10 television shows, but they only announced 9 because the Mandalorian, we know that's in production for ongoing.
And this goes back to what you were saying, though, Script. All these shows that are up here, all these are shows that we've already known about, except for Acolyte and the Droid one and the Rogue Squadron. And those are 3 that we knew about the Leslie Headland deal, so you can cross that one off the list. But the rest of these, besides Rogue Squadron and Droid Story, we pretty much already knew. We already knew about Casio Keyboard. We already knew about Obi-Wan. We already knew about Bad Batch. We already knew about Lando. Visions, well, you can just chalk that up to, like, of course they were going to do some kind of animated series of something. Droids is an animated series, so it's a fucking animated series. Yeah, they threw that together real quick. Rogue Squadron was like the only one that was kind of a surprise and came out of fucking nowhere.
Well,
like, nobody knew anything about nobody knew anything about Patty Jenkins working on a super secret Star Wars project.
Well, that's actually something I think we can talk about a little bit, is that Rogue Squadron doesn't really it doesn't give you any sort of direction. It's like the safest bet you can have. It's probably going to be the movie that's designed to not offend anyone, because it's just going to be, pilots doing some sort of basic secret mission, like a paint by numbers thing. Kind of similar in the vein of Rogue One, but with less at stake, I would imagine, because what are they going to do in the movie that's going to actually change the direction of Star Wars for the better? It's not. It's just going to keep you in a state of arrested development, because aside from Wonder Woman, what has Patty Jenkins done that's been kind of like a game changer with regards to, or an identifier of her as a director? Like, nothing. She's a very competent director, but she doesn't really have her own voice or stamp on things.
I don't see. Again, there are things I know, and I think a script can say the same thing. There are things I know that made this list that were nowhere close to even being ready to be announced, and there are a couple of things that they held back that aren't on this board, and that I anticipated would have been announced at an event like this. So some of that has to do
tells
with,
me they're not ready yet. Then,
well, it tells me that they don't want to tip all of the cards that they have, because they have a show that's basically set up right now to present every single other show at this point. So,
well, fill us in, man.
well, no, I mean, there are a couple of things that were on the table that haven't been announced, that, like I said, the Mandalorian is essentially the launching pad for a lot of this stuff. The Ahsoka show, Rangers of the New Republic, et cetera, et cetera. Those shows are, being tipped by Mandalorian. You're going to see some more of that as well. The Cassian Andor thing, we've heard about it multiple times at this point, but there's been some iffy stuff going on behind the scenes that I've been, told about, that makes me concerned for its future. The Lando thing was, I have no positive feelings.
It's just a repurposed movie script that they were going to use.
Yeah, and I have no positive feelings for that. And the Rogue Squadron thing can do absolutely nothing except set Star Wars back. And I understand Patty Jenkins' concept behind this is to honor her grandfather, who was a fighter pilot or whatever. But if anything, I don't anticipate great things out of nearly everything on this screen right now. And I still don't see Indiana Jones, which isn't Star Wars related, but I still don't see Indiana Jones 5 actually happening. I think
it will, but
okay.
I'll tell you why I think it will. That's because they signed on James Mangold. And when she announced the other night that it was going to be the last one, I knew it. That kind of didn't confirm, but I've had this feeling once they got James Mangold on board that this was going to be Harrison Ford's song. Indiana Jones is going to die in the end of this movie. This is going to be his Logan. You watch.
I agree with that, and I also agree with the U culture that I honestly don't see a lot to look forward to here. And I think that with the things that they have announced, and again, this is kind of like the things that I'm questioning exactly who is behind the different things, because what we have here in Lucasfilm is a house divided, and right now we kind of like have two competing creative forces that are creating a slate. You have Kathleen Kennedy and her faction in one end, who are all about the agenda first, and then you have Jon Favreau, who is all about Star Wars first. And both of them are working on projects at the same time. And now what I have heard is that the projects that really matter are Favreau's projects, whereas the Kennedy projects, they're kind of there, but they're not getting the same attention and resources, but they're still going to happen.
Well, there's also still a lot of contention behind The Acolyte, because that's the Leslie Headland show, and it was essentially greenlit under dubious means. It was leaked to the press to get media to put pressure on Disney to go ahead with a pitch that actually isn't really a pitch of anything. It's just, okay, dark side, High Republic, female-centric, which is not a thing. There's nothing there, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be under more scrutiny because of that during the development stage, where if things look like Disney Plus is going to go in a different direction, that's going to be the first one to be cast aside.
Yeah, Because there's like the things that I feel good about are the things that we know are by Favreau, the ones that tie in with the Mandalorian, Rangers and Ahsoka. I feel good about those, but the rest here, I'm yeah. I don't have a good feeling at all, but that's just me, and I don't have any insider knowledge or anything like that. But culture, I'm curious. Can you elaborate a little bit more with what you can share, at least,
Well,
of
look,
what you heard about Andor and
well,
the other parts?
I just everything I've heard is it wasn't going in the right direction. There have been some issues with the script. I mean, it's typical with Disney Lucasfilm nowadays. I hate to say it this way, but
A typical Kathleen Kennedy's style of management is what you mean.
exactly, yeah, that's exactly right. And with the things that she's more affiliated with are the things that continually have trouble, which is why we're on our third set of scripts. And I know Script Doctor has a more positive view of the third set of scripts we're getting for Obi-Wan Kenobi. And maybe it'll work out. But Filoni still has his hand in the Bad Batch and the Droid show. So just keep that in mind when you look at those two programs. But anything that Kathleen has her hand in right now, that on her way out the door, she's still got her hand in. She's I don't know if wrecking's not the right word. Her influence causes all kinds of chaos within the production. That's the best way to say it.
Well, yeah, that's going to be Andor, Obi-Wan, and the Acolyte. Those are her three big ones.
Yeah.
And those ones have all had a lot of issues with them, like from the controversy of the Acolyte being greenlit, from the fact that they've had to rewrite Obi-Wan multiple times, and the fact that Andor hasn't even figured out what they're going to do with that story yet, as far as I know.
Well,
so you're all agreed then that Obi-Wan, this is still mostly Kathleen Kennedy's. So
it was announced before even the Mandalorian. So
it's still under KK. I mean, her name, going forward, regardless on almost everything Lucasfilm, even when she is stopped receiving soft contract extensions. I don't even know how to describe how she's going to stick around, but going at that point, once she no longer holds an office in a building there, her name's still going to be on a ton of crap. And, and just
and
in
she's
name,
collecting paycheck from that. Yeah,
exactly. In name only. And that's, for what it's worth, once she is out the door, I mean, we can expect less chaos and film and television production when it comes to Lucasfilm, but man, she is an agent of chaos. Anything she touches, it's been bad. So.
Absolutely. So basically what you're saying, at least what I'm hearing, you may not be saying it, but what I'm hearing is that of all of these projects, abandon hope for every single one apart from Rangers and Ahsoka, because they're pure Favreau. They're going to be fine. But everything else here, she is going to have too much of a hand in that they can possibly be good.
I feel like Bad Batch and the Droid show could be fine, but again, we're talking about
they're animated. So
exactly.
So that's like something else. But for instance, Lando, then that really sounds like one of hers, because that's spun right off of her Solo. That's probably like Solo 2. That's now.
Well, they announced that back before the movie even came out, I think.
Yeah, Lando was getting a spinoff before the movie release, but I anticipate nothing positive coming out of Lando.
Yeah, and the influence that Kathleen Kennedy's going to have over this is really just selecting of who's going to be working on the projects, and she's not very good at picking the best teams to work on things.
No, if she has shown one thing, it is that. And this is kind of like what we've seen many other places as well. What really, really separates a great studio head is from a poor one is who they choose to do the day-to-day operations and various things. That's kind of like where Kevin Feige excels. He finds the right people and he makes sure that they're on the same page with him early on in the process, and if they're not, they're out. And only when he knows that, okay, yeah, fine, we see eye to eye on this, and I can trust that you're going to actually do what we agreed that you're going to do. And if there's a question along the way, you're going to do what I say. As long as it works like that, then we're all good, and that has worked great so far. Contrast that to Marvel's previous TV division and their Netflix show headed by Jeff Loeb, who's no longer there. There's a reason for that. And Kathleen Kennedy is kind of like that again. If there's one thing that she's weak at, well, actually, there's many things, but like the most the most notable thing then is hiring the wrong people, because under her watch, statistically, if you were hired to direct a Star Wars movie, you were probably not going to do it, because more people were hired and fired than actually hired and went on through completing a Star Wars project.
You ruined my joke, Andre, but yeah, no, you're right. But what I was getting back to with this whole thing with these announcements was what Script was telling us is that they were just salvaging what they had and they weren't accepting anything new. And that's what I see here. Like
Exactly.
yeah. Like all this stuff is stuff that was all announced before. That's why I'm curious how much Favreau really does have to do with any of this stuff outside of Ahsoka and Rangers, which are probably the only things on here that are semi-new in quotations outside of Acolyte.
Well, Favreau's in the position where he can pitch ideas, and then KK and Iger can say yes or no. And Ahsoka and the Rangers of the New Republic, those look like sure things based on the Mandalorian as it is. And Favreau's also a smart enough guy to know that he can't be doing more than 3 or 4 shows at a time, because it's just he's gonna have no time for himself or his family. And I know there's a lot of fan applause for Favreau to take over as Kathleen Kennedy's position. But if you'll notice, he's never made any indication he wants that job. No one's asked him about it.
I don't think
completely out of his wheelhouse.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, as much as the fans want it, it's really not going to be the decision that they are going to enjoy if that were to be coming to fruition. It's most likely that Kevin Feige is going to find a way to be heads of 2 studios. But as soon as he figures out what's going on with the theatrical model for the Marvel Cinematic Universe for next year, he's still going to be at arm's length away. And I think unless he's got someone prepped to take over his position at Marvel so he can move to Star Wars, which I haven't really heard anything certain about, we're probably going to have KK still, overseeing things until the position is filled. Pretty much.
But Script, you're not wrong. I mean, there have been conversations where Feige would operate 2 studios with direct supervision from Alan Horn.
Yeah. And that's like a tough job as it is, but I can see why they're pushing it off, because again, Marvel made the announcement that they're going to still do theatrical runs in 2021, but we all know as those dates get closer, that theatrical release date is probably going to be a day and date thing.
And I've also posited before that like the whole idea of Feige taking over was possibly the whole idea before, basically everything went completely to shit. And, the whole deal with James Gunn, because remember, James Gunn was supposed to come in and oversee the cosmic side of the Marvel Universe. Well, that's a big portion of the Marvel Universe, if you ask me.
Yep.
And why would you bring somebody in if you're not going to be, probably distracted doing other things? And I wonder if that's part of the reason the whole Bob Iger meltdown happened in that meeting was like, and remember, like that was the whole thing we heard was that everybody was pissed that Horn, jumped the gun on James Gunn because nobody else was talked to in that situation, especially Bob and Feige. And that was the big thing that we were hearing about was, and it was no surprise that he was brought back into the fold. But I think that just pushed everything back on top of the pandemic. And maybe that's where we're at, where Kennedy
it had a ripple effect.
I think we're stuck with her for another couple of years.
Yeah, it had a ripple effect because Infinity War turned out differently than what was going to happen, because James Gunn was planned to have involvement with that. And he was out the door right in the middle of
Endgame, but yeah. Because he did work on
Endgame, Endgame.
I still think you won't see 2 more years of KK just based on the direction they've been heading. I think that, and again, I think Script might agree with me on this. She's going to get soft extensions for a couple rounds, but at the end of 2 years, everything will have shaken out and we will have an actual studio head of sorts.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if she made it to the end of 2021, but I don't think she's going to last long in 2022.
No. Yeah. I agree.
I don't think they can really fire her.
They can't. They can just not renew her
can't
contract.
fire her. But yeah, exactly. Here's like the thing that she's automatically out the door unless she's renewed. So they kind of like screw themselves over by actively renewing her contract. But what I've been hearing is that if she's not renewed, then the Twitterati are going to take that as if a progressive female studio head was fired. And Disney doesn't want that kind of negative spotlight on them. That's what I heard, at least.
I'm
Maybe I
curious
heard
what
wrong.
her actual place is in the company, like, because that's the thing is, Lucas put her in place before the company was sold.
He did indeed. That was a single greatest mistake he ever made.
Yeah, and what stipulations were put in there as to where, like, because I mean, like I've brought up before, it doesn't even matter. She could leave tomorrow, and she still has her claws into Indiana Jones, and nothing anybody can do about it, because she's always been a producer on that. And we know for a fact that I'm sure she's got an Amy Pascal deal to where everything for the next 20 years that's Star Wars related, she'll have her fucking name slapped on. But my point is I just wonder if they can get rid of her. I mean, I don't know. Like, even
I think her situation is more like, the retired guy or girl that's at the company, like they're retired, but they still work there because there's not really any person who's able to fill in their spot. I think that's what the position Kathleen Kennedy's in at the moment, and will be for a while.
Yeah, and I agree with Script in that. That's probably the best assessment so far. Is that the goal is to put somebody in a position over both studios. And to try to get them both under control, because right now these are their two crown jewels as far as they're concerned, and as far as they try to present to the investors. And they've devalued them to a certain extent, but they're trying to recoup that and to rebuild that value. So, but when we get into the part of the conversation when we talk about as compared to Warner and Netflix, I mean, I'll have some other things to say. So,
well, actually, what we should probably do, since we're already this far into the show, Andre, we should probably catch up on super chats, and then
we probably should
discuss that very thing.
Yeah, indeed. So let's do some super chats first, because you've been sending them in, and we are going to address them presently. We already did one. Aaron C says, "How the hell is Disney stock at 171? They cannot be turning a profit this year." Financial Times. Yeah, we covered that one. And then Mr. Tickle Trunk, he sent us a super sticker of a unicorn. Thank you so much. And Tonnister Tree says, "Is Disney pulling Kabbalah's moves, announcing things just to prop up stock?"
Possibly.
Well, if they were, I think that they chose some really bad projects to prop up.
Right, and that's where I was kind of asking cultures, like, what would they be holding back right now? Why hold back now? This is not the time to be holding back.
Well, because they actually have there's a couple of things that they're working on that are somewhat loosely tied to Mandalorian that I think they didn't want to, completely tip their hat on the show. That's my thought is.
Yeah, I think we'll hear something, say, a minimum of 2 weeks from now.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Script. Well, I still call bullshit on that Boba Fett series unless it's a prequel anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask. What do you think about the Boba Fett series that was so heavily rumored that it even featured in the in Deadline Hollywood, which goes for pretty much the same thing. Deadline Hollywood report about a Boba Fett series, and Grace Randolph speculated that what could be happening is that this is just her speculation, but in season 3 of The Mandalorian will actually feature Boba Fett as the lead.
No. And Script, I think you can back me up on this unless I'm completely off base. They have basically telegraphed the way this show is going to end this season. Boba Fett is going to sacrifice himself saving that baby. Mando is going to get his ship. Chicky Poo is going to get his outfit. And they're going to give him the heroic ending he never got in the Sarlacc pit. And a big if there is a Boba Fett series, I guarantee you it's a prequel about how he got out the fucking Sarlacc pit.
Well, in his adventures afterward.
Well, yeah, because that's the thing is they telegraphed it to me as a writer the moment that the Razor Crest got blew up. That there's no way Boba Fett was making out this season alive. What do you think, Script?
I mean, that is definitely one way to go. The other way I suspect is that season 3 will be Mandalorian and Boba Fett, and it'll be
Yeah.
season 3 will be a setup for a possible Boba Fett series. But I think that your approach is far more dramatic and probably might be
Well, and
more
add
with
in there
what's
that
gonna
the
happen.
actor is in his 60s or whatever, or almost or whatever. So yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
he's
foresee
59.
him. Yeah, I don't foresee him heading up a series right
Well,
now.
again, you use a stunt double because he wears the costume most of the time, and then you just slot him in for when he needs to take off his helmet. It's
And
yeah.
I just don't think Pedro's going anywhere. I really don't.
Well, he's a really good voice actor.
Mhm.
I don't think they give a shit about the things that we think they do because they didn't flinch on the casting for Ms. Marvel. I don't think Cara Dune's going anywhere because evidently that's her series is the Rangers series.
I don't know if that's the case because the Rangers have a pair of wings on their logo, and that's not associated with a cartoon character. And if it
I don't
is,
know.
it's
I've
a
heard
really
two
misunderstanding of
stories,
what their
so
own
yeah,
writing. So
I have no idea.
Well, here's the thing: she can be in it without being the lead.
exactly, yeah, she could.
Yeah, because I haven't fully researched the situation. I do not buy into the rumors that Disney told her that apologize or you will not get your own series. That does not ring true to me.
It doesn't, and it's not true.
And the other reason why I think Boba's going to die is because he said flat out, because you have a character that was always kind of presented as, you know, the kind of character that walks the line between a villain and a hero, not even really a hero, more of an anti-hero, if that. And he basically was all like, you know, like, my duty isn't done until I get my end of the bargain, which means basically save the baby. So he's going to die saving that fucking baby. I guarantee it. And they set him up with a surrogate daughter and what's her face? I can't think of her name.
Fennec Shan, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
but they're also close in age too.
Yeah, but they're playing her off like she'll get the armor and go do her own thing, and he'll get the ship.
We'll know in a couple of days, actually. So
well, here's the thing: we've seen that ship go through hell. And it was after that explosion. It's not fixable unless you just build one.
Rebuild.
What you mean like the Mandalorian ship, the one that was blown to smithereens? So there was nothing left. Yeah, there was nothing left of it.
Ship was disintegrated. I knew it. I'm like, I know that's the story beat right there. That's a dead giveaway because you're setting yourself up for Mando doesn't have a ship. Boba Fett's this old gruff guy. He's redeeming himself in the eyes of the story lore of the Star Wars universe now. You know, this is it. He's going to get his heroic ending, saving Baby Yoda.
I don't know how people are going to respond to someone else piloting Slave One. I mean, I'm as casual a fan as they come, and even I know that that's Slave One, and it belongs with Django and Boba Fett and no one else.
Yeah, well, they don't.
No, you're right, but does Disney agree? That's the other question.
Yeah, that's a question. That's of course the question.
They just had this big old Razor Crest toy that cost like, what was it, $400 fucking bucks?
Does it come with a cube of dynamite?
What was that, Andre?
I mean, like, does it come with a stick of dynamite? Because that would be one really nice playset then.
Well, no, this is one of those HasLab things, and they just like reached their goal and all this other bullshit, and are starting shipping or whatever the hell was going on with it this last week, and then they went and blew it up in this last show, and all these guys were freaking the fuck out now because they spent $400. Like a bunch of guys were canceling their order and shit. I guess they're trying to cancel their. I have no idea, but people, that was something we're gonna have to ask Michael about when he comes back again. But yeah, it's just like, oh.
And like to your point, Tom, I mean, I could understand them doing it, but it just seems too risky for what The Mandalorian has done so far. Like, it's a very safe show.
Well, that's why I don't think they'll get rid of him. That's where I think it's too safe to get rid of Mandalorian. Boba Fett,
I think it's too safe to even get rid of Boba Fett. Or not. I think it's too risky to get Boba Fett.
As far as the general audience already figured was dead to begin with.
Oh yeah, I mean,
outside of people who know anything about the EU, they have no idea he was alive.
Yep. But like, you just bring a character back to kill him off again. I mean, as a writer, I'm like, that's kind of waste. Like, if
Yeah, that's
Kind of is.
overweight.
But what you're doing is giving the care. I know, I get where you guys are coming from,
yeah.
but I also see from like writing 101. Because here's the thing I see at
Well,
this.
you're bleeding one character into another by having this type of exchange. Yeah.
Yes, and that's where I was saying you have the setup with Fen. That's her name. Fen.
Yeah,
Fennec Ranger. I don't know. Fucking yeah, she's obviously like his surrogate daughter now, so she'll get his armor, and then he'll or
This is
it'll be
actually
vice
something
versa.
that
It could be vice versa, but what the fuck is he going to do with his armor? And what the hell does she need? She may need the ship, but he needs a ship too now. So unless she's going to be part of the show as well, then that's the thing.
Well, I mean,
yeah, going
if
off.
they're going to stick to some lore with Boba Fett, he has 3 other slave ships, or ships with a slave designation to use. So he could always give one of those to the Mandalorian, or he could die, and that has to be all sorted out. I mean, we're not going to get a full length episode nethis week. I think this projected runtime is like 40 minutes, so it's going to be a very fast.
I could be wrong.
dense show. Yeah,
I could be wrong, but I got a pretty good track record for calling shit out.
We'll see. I hope you are, because I like Boba Fett in this. I thought it was awesome to have him back, and like the Mandalorian is like I don't watch many series, but of the very very few I do, I actually enjoy the Mandalorian, and I look forward to the spin-off. So I hope that they do not mess it up by that way.
I do see the irony of him having like repainted his armor, and then he gets killed, and like blood splatters all over it and ruins the paint job, because that's kind of like the same method of what happened with the Razor Crest. Every time he got it fixed, it would get damaged again.
Well, Tom, just remember what I had mentioned way back before the season started that I had heard, and
I don't remember, dude.
Oh,
season 2 is basically a public pitch for all these other shows.
yeah, but also in regards to Boba Fett. So
I just don't see them keeping him around. I don't.
Anyway.
Yeah, well, we shall see. Personally, I would love to see Boba Fett, this Boba Fett, and not someone else taking his armor. Stay around, but that's me.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, but we have some more super chats to get through now that you've had your say. So Roger Haynes, he sent us a super sticker with hype. So thanks so much. That's something that I absolutely feel for the Mandalorian, not anything else. John Apocalypse says Netflix content looking bad. You seen Win X Club? I've never heard of Win X Club. Is that a Netflix thing, guys?
Or is that the Windows X Club? No, I don't know. I don't know, actually. No.
Yeah, that's not ringing any bells for me.
Yeah. Well, I think that I'm just waiting for like a proper content announcement from Netflix, because you just know that they're going to have to respond to all the stuff that's now being announced from Warner and from Disney. And meanwhile, Netflix, they're the current king of the hill, but they're losing content. So they're going to have to ramp up their own production. And
Winks. Winks, not Winks.
Oh, Winks.
I'm still not familiar with it. But
yeah, not ringing any bells here. But to your point, Andre, Netflix, I think when they heard that line of quality over quantity, just bulked out laughing, because Netflix has got more revered shows, even with lesser seasons, than anything Disney has put out in the last 10 years. So I don't think they're really too worried about in that regard, but I wouldn't be surprised that, they're thinking of a new strategy now that they're going to, now in a few years, they're not going to have as much catalog content from other studios in their archive.
Exactly. Well, and they're going to lose catalog, and they're going to face competition from all of these things which are now being announced, assuming they're getting made. And culture, you were saying.
Oh, no, I was just going to add to that their catalog has been shrinking since 2018, and they saw the writing on the wall with a lot of go orders, but they're going to have to abandon their 2-season or 3-season max concept that they have been a part of, because the part of the catalog they're losing are the long-term running shows like Friends and things like that people stick around to binge a decade worth of shows for. And they're going to have to stick with some of these programs a bit longer than they're comfortable with.
It is. They use the same aggregate of network television for when they cancel a show. The problem is that because they put out so much, and also they don't have the same level of advertising infrastructure that the television had in the 90s, because it's a different model. They're kind of actually shooting themselves in the foot, because there's a number of shows that made it 2 or 3 seasons that were actually very, very good, but people only starting to realize what they were in during that 3rd season, but it wasn't enough numbers for them to continue the show. But had they let it go one extra season, they probably would have seen, like, another popularity series like Orange is the New Black or Stranger Things type of thing.
Right.
What Winx is a cartoon, and Netflix did a live action adaptation, and they're being accused of whitewashing characters.
Oh my!
Yeah.
How horrible of them!
That's slipped out under my radar. I did not know about
the
that.
cartoon. It's like some Flash cartoon shit. So I have no idea.
I've never heard of it. Never gonna check it out.
Looks like fairies or whatever. Yeah.
The moment that you said Flash cartoon, then I was definitely out.
It looks like some stuff like in that My Little Pony kind of range type.
Yeah. I wish they I'm out. Let's just say
something you'll probably be watching in however many years when your kid's old enough. No. M Tax Shark sent us a super sticker, Andre. Did we get caught up in the other super?
No, we still have a few, but we can deal with that one first from M Tax Shark. So thanks for that. But moving on to those that we have not yet caught up with. Crispy Critter says Luke's lost years could be a simple, elegant story with or without Obi-Wan. I'm boiling with ideas, just sitting here listening to you guys. Yeah, that's actually the thing. That just brainstorming between us, we come up with more exciting stuff than what we're actually getting from Lucasfilm. How about that?
I'm not surprised.
And Mr. Tickle Trunk says, KK, with all of those logos, just looks to me like a religious zealot, telling us about the characters she will destroy for the intersectional cause. Yeah, that's my worry. That is my worry. And Mech1164 says, being a B5 fan, Babylon 5, I guess, the Anla Shock have a bone to pick with Favreau. When I heard the announcement, I went, what the hell? I've never seen Babylon 5, but yeah, I trust that there's absolutely a reason to say that if you are. So, and Phil Moore says, what if Obi-Wan Kenobi is a drama that covers Luke and Ben's controversial feelings for one another? Oscar-worthy material right there. You see, that's exactly what I was saying. But if this is Kathleen Kennedy, this is her opportunity to ruin Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, and Obi-Wan Kenobi in one fell swoop.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not really looking forward to it. No.
That's like my big worry with it.
I mean, she's already got the moniker of the Great Destroyer, so I mean, why not keep going, right?
Yeah, like why not just go all in and do it all the way once she's at it? And yeah, and Low and Key says Disney/Lucasfilm in 2018. Star Wars fatigue. Disney/Lucasfilm in 2020. Throw a bunch of crap at a wall and see what sticks.
Well, there are five. Look, there are 5 other things they could have thrown on that wall from Star Wars as well. So I'm just saying, they're just they. I'm telling you, with some of these announcements, they surprise some production folks, some pre-production folks, some development folks. There were some surprised faces. I'm telling you.
He's like, "What? We got to work on this now?"
Yeah,
it was pretty much what I would suspect.
Yeah.
And Mr. Tickle Trunk also says, so glad Cultured Casino is here. Great channel.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Tickle Trunk, and I appreciate your support of all of the amazing content creators that we seem to all share.
Indeed. And Aaron C. says, killing Boba Fett is a very bad move after killing the OT mains in the sequel
That's
trilogy.
What they do, though.
It is.
And following on from that point, Terminus Est says, Fett dying would spit in the face of every EU fan.
Well,
and what would that be a change?
Yeah,
I think you should be saying would spit.
That's called a
more.
Monday for Disney.
Well,
yeah.
I just want to point you towards season 1 before. Look, I don't. First of all, I would never want to spoil anybody's enjoyment of the show. Some of the things I'd heard had come true, like Fat Boba Fett and some other stuff. Dad bod Boba Fett, whatever it was, I'd heard all of this, and of course the actor's bigger, so of course that was going to be the case. But I'd also heard that there were going to be some things that would occur during the course of Boba Fett's part of the show, and that ultimately the fans would end up in a position where they were very unhappy with Boba Fett and his arc in the show. Now, much of what I'd heard is true. Much of what I'd heard about some other shows that were on the horizon was true. So I'm leaning towards one of my friends who's been very reliable is saying this is true. So, but I'm gonna put things in this way, and this is in support of also what Tom thinks, and that is this: how many people died at the end of season 1 of Mandalorian, or characters, I should say?
One character, technically.
Nick
Nolte was the episode before,
and the robot character.
Yeah. So in the last 2 episodes, you lost some, important characters to the series, and I just you didn't lose a main character, right? So I just go into the show with an open mind. That's all I want to say. So either way.
I mean, let's look at it this way. Okay, if I'm completely wrong, then the Pedro Pascal shit went so far that they got rid of his ass. And if that's the only way they're going to kill him, I think that's where people are just getting wishful thinking a little bit too much, is they want Pedro's character to die.
I don't think that's going to happen. I have no
I don't either.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's too out there for Disney to do.
But if they do it, then I hope that they go with the way that I say that Mando should die. That is, create a new huge character, have the Mountain play him, and then have him crush the Beskar helmet with Mando's head still in it. Like nice little tribute to Game of Thrones, which is how Pedro Pascal met his end there.
It won't happen because and this is the thing is, even if they were to fire Pedro, they would just recast the character, and they wouldn't even make a big deal out of it. Probably
they could change it with Nathan Fillion. They look pretty much the same.
Well, we just never see his face. Yeah. Like this last episode, I feel like that whole bit with the whole thing was almost just that's why I feel like it was
very contrived.
It felt like they were bending to Pedro to get his face on screen. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't think that we're gonna lose him, and I hope we will not lose Boba Fett either. But that's me. And moving on from that, T Stoney says, "Frack Disney, done with them." And Taker 6610 says, "Slave 1. That name is canceling material."
Yeah, it's quite problematic, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed.
Then you guys are telling me those multiple slaves? Jesus.
Yep.
Yeah, that doesn't make it any better. And Nikki D says, "Why is Disney confident that releasing Black Widow exclusively to the remaining opening theaters would be a financially sound decision?"
Did they say that, though?
Yeah.
Well, if they said that, they're lying.
They are.
Here's the thing:
they are not confident about that at all. They
didn't say they weren't releasing it on Disney Plus at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't remember them saying anything about exclusivity. I'd have to listen to the thing again. You could be right, Nikki D. But what I caught from that is what Andre picked up on the same thing, is they were playing the fence on this one.
Yeah.
They knew that Warner already put the ball into play. They didn't have to hit it. They didn't have to get in on this. If they did, it would have been just like a massacre. And everybody lost their fucking minds. So Disney played it pretty smart in the business sense.
Yeah.
Like, they're just going to sit on the fence and wait to see what happens. The big question is, will there be any theaters in May?
Yeah. And I would also like to point out that words are cheap. Just look at Warner. They were very loud and clear that Wonder Woman 84 would open exclusively in theaters right up until the moment when they changed their minds.
Exactly.
And that's like the same thing right now. Disney can go and say all they want about, oh, this movie is opening exclusively in theaters in May. Come middle of April, they can come and say, you know what? The movie is going to be on Disney Plus day and date with theaters in 2
And
weeks.
what are you going to do about it? And that's what they're gonna say.
Exactly. So there's stuff like that they can always go back on. There's like no promise here that no one is going to hold them through. All they're saying is their intention as of this moment, and that intention can change the next moment.
In
As
fact,
indeed has happened many, many times. So Disney are not confident that releasing Black Widow exclusively to the remaining opening theaters is a financially sound decision. They're just saying that, and in reality, just wait and see. It's a long time between now and May.
in fact, I'll go one step further. I'll bet you $5 that the Black Widow is the $5 super chat you just sent. There you go. I'll bet you that, Nikki. That Black Widow ends up being another one of those $30 movies on Disney Plus.
Well, I won't say that it absolutely won't. I don't think that it will even be one that doesn't get simultaneous release for $30.
They have and the reason I think that is because they have less red tape to go through than Warner does.
Absolutely.
The only thing Disney has to face is they don't have the backing of AT&T. They don't have, a communications company backing the play or actually making the play in this case, because they know as a loss leader, it's a blip to AT&T. Yeah. To Disney, though, to make Black Widow a loss leader would really hurt them. So they are hoping beyond hope, Nikki, that theaters are open, but I'm betting that by that time, AMC's probably not going to be open. All the, Cinemark and all them are going to be closed. Regal's going to be closed. There's not going to be enough theaters to make a dent that they're going to say, yeah, it's going to be day and date, but it'll go into whatever independent theaters are still open in Alamo draft houses, and that's it.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say simultaneous release for that film is most likely in May of 2021, as they are projecting. But Disney is in there. I mean, essentially, they gave you their strategy when they did this presentation. They are 80-20 right now. 80% of everything that you're going to see out of Disney is going to go to streaming in some form or fashion and digital release, and the other 20% might make it to a theatrical or simultaneous release. There you are.
It's a big might, unless Script or Andre has anything else to add to that.
No, I have nothing to add.
Probability.
Yeah, I have nothing to add. There just has to be theaters to release things in.
Very true.
But that's why I also believe in like this day and date thing. That they'll do a symbolic theatrical release, but they know that if there's not a theatrical market, not a really viable one, then for all intents and purposes, that's just like extra promotion for the Disney Plus release.
But the thing is HBO or AT&T in this matter just redefined home box office with their fucking announcement. Like that put a nail in this whole thing. Like you saw panic throughout the entire industry, and I don't even think Disney still knows how to deal with this.
I think there's a very good chance that by the end of 2021, HBO Max could have surpassed Disney Plus where subscribers are concerned. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think that option is on the table.
So let's look at it. I want to look at it even more broadly than that, if you don't mind, Andre. And that is,
sure, go for it.
That across the streaming spectrum, Disney is projecting by 2023, 2024 to have over 350 million or 300 to 350 million. I'll stay it that way. Subscribers across all of their streaming platforms. Their Disney Plus, as far as they're concerned, is obviously one of their their startup at this point, even though Star and Star Plus, are starting to figure rather heavily internationally for them. But when they did their presentation, they made it a point to say that, we have 180 some million subscribers across all platforms right now. So, you know, and I could have that number confused. It could be 137 million. My brain's, you know, I have so many numbers in there right now. It's ridiculous. But without looking at my notes, like I said, so there's a considerable number of subscribers when it comes to Disney's overall platform strategy. It's just Disney Plus. Yeah, I can see them surpassing them on Disney Plus. I don't know where they'll end up. Where they'll end up as far as the streaming platforms being profitable. Disney isn't looking at profitability on their streaming platforms or any of them at this point until 2023. And as far as Disney Plus, they don't anticipate profitability until 2024. And the last thing I'm going to throw in there, and I know this is part of my video that releases here in about 40 minutes, but it is that you're going to see Disney spending up to $16 billion a year in content creation for Disney Plus, just Disney Plus.
Yeah. No, I'm not disputing anything of that.
Yeah. Oh no, I didn't think you were. I'm just saying, to add to it, they're going to be spending an extraordinary amount of money to create all this content. So,
yeah.
And Phil Morrison in $5 says, Boba Fett going to get a better redemption than Luke. Great timeline we're in. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the thing is you take a care. And again, I could be wrong. I'm only speculating, but I'm going by like writing 101 shit when it comes to movies.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, I could be wrong, but M Tax Dark sends us a super sticker. I can't see what is it, Andre?
That's a thumbs up, a red thumbs up.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And Miguel Hernandez asks, any chance Netflix buys Sony Pictures or Lionsgate?
You never know.
Man, Lionsgate would be, that'd be a good, anybody soaking that up. Yeah, that would be really good.
Honestly, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. You know why? You know why I do? Well, of course, it could happen, but you know why I do not think that Netflix is going to buy Sony Pictures or Lionsgate? Neither of them have any big brands.
That's true.
That Netflix would want. They have like some level of production facilities and stuff, but Netflix already has those, and they have like their own mini distribution channels. But Netflix doesn't need that. So what would either Sony or Lionsgate strategically give to Netflix?
Well, they'd give them an upgrade in their infrastructure. Mostly Lionsgate. Sony's never going to sell. But Lionsgate does have some pretty useful assets on the infrastructure side of things that Netflix could easily acclimate into and give themselves a little bit more flexibility with production and how they choose things and how they market. But outside of that, I can't think of any properties that Lionsgate owns.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. So yeah, of course they could probably use those production facilities, but I think that they can get those similar facilities and similar competence without having to go all out and buy a studio, especially one that doesn't give them anything worthwhile in terms of branded content that they can further exploit. Because if you look at all of the brands that comes with Lionsgate, they're a distributor. How much do they own? Like most of the stuff that they have is through Millennium or something.
I was going to say, I think Rambo might be one of the I don't even know if they have that anymore.
No, Lionsgate is just distributing.
Just distributor,
yeah. So for in terms of content, Netflix would be more likely to buy Millennium, or rather their parent company, New Image. Well, and then do they really want to get in bed with Abbey Lerner and company? That is also another question.
I would actually see, and I wouldn't say never with Sony, because I could see Netflix going for Sony first. And hear me out here. It's not so much that they have, like, they don't really have a lot of big franchises per se, but what they do have is a deep catalog. So if like Sony wanted to, if like Netflix wanted to inject their, and I'm talking beyond movies, because they have a big television catalog.
Yes,
Sony has a huge television catalog, and Netflix and Sony have been really worthwhile.
that could be worthwhile, their television catalog, because again, like Netflix is gonna lose so many of the like long form series like Friends and stuff like that. I don't know off the top of my head what Sony can offer that people would want, but that is a good reason for buying
Seinfeld.
Sony. Is that with Sony? Would they get Seinfeld if they bought
Yeah.
Sony?
Yeah.
Well, then that's a good reason for buying.
And they
Sony.
already have and that's what I'm saying. They already have a relationship with Seinfeld. They've had, a lot of good relations. Like the whole thing with Crackle, they sold all their original entertainment to Sony, did to Netflix. And again, like if Netflix is interested, that's where I think they're going to go, because they've got all kinds of game shows, classic television. Seinfeld was always one of their big things. Like Columbia has a huge library. I mean, I don't know how much they own of Ghostbusters, but of course that's one of their bigger franchises, Men in Black.
Sony technically has like a licensing deal with Ghostbusters as opposed to owning it. So
that's what I was going to say. Now that may be, out the door, but I still think they have their claws in Men in Black, and they may lose Spider-Man if they sold it, but I don't think that would matter.
I have a thing. I suspect that Disney probably would make an argument that Sony can't sell to Netflix because of Spider-Man, their deals with Spider-Man. Unless
I think it would just revert
broken.
to I think Spider-Man would just revert back to Disney is the deal.
It could be that case, yeah, but I think that's...
Well, Marvel, in quotations, but yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's one of the reasons I don't think Sony wants that to happen. They don't want to lose Spider-Man, so I think that's probably one of the obstacles they'd have to figure out.
It all depends on how lucrative. See, here's the thing where I see it right now. The Spider-Man deal is basically being handled mostly by Disney. Yeah, they got their couple spin-offs over there, but all Rothman gives a shit about is like independent type movies, like Baby Driver and shit like that. He didn't care about big franchise shit. Like, so the studio, what do they got? All Sony is right now outside of Spider-Man is basically they make movies out of their video games. That's their future. Wasn't that their plan like 30 years ago or 20 years ago, and that never really panned out?
Yeah, kind of. But here's the thing, though, that if they bought Sony Pictures, they wouldn't get the license to those video game movies with them.
No, and that's fine.
They would stay with Sony Japan.
And that's why I think Sony would gladly unload the movie department, because then they could just license out their shit, and then it's a less of a burden on them. Because that's the film department has done nothing but drag them down over the years, really. Because isn't that what the whole thing was? Is like the PlayStation and all that stuff was basically funding the fucking movies and shit over the last few years.
Yeah, well, the last few years it has done that. But yeah, I agree, because as I said, I wouldn't completely rule out Netflix buying Sony or Lionsgate, but I don't think it's likely. But of course, when you point out the TV catalog, then that is something that actually does make Sony a likely candidate to be bought. Their movie catalog, I honestly don't know how much is worth it to Netflix, but their TV series catalog, their serialized content, yeah, that would be worth something for them.
Yeah, and it goes back quite a ways, because I think they even, they've got quite a bit of shit they bought over the years, because they got like all the Merv Griffin shows and all that stuff too, I believe.
Yeah. That would be worthwhile, but again, my point stands with Lionsgate. I do not see, at least top of my head, I do not see what they would be too interested with Lionsgate that they could not get for cheaper by not buying a whole studio.
Just licensing their content. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, even with Rambo and John Wick and all of the movie franchises that Lionsgate.
Oh yeah, John Wick. That's the only one Lionsgate's got.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they do. I guess Lionsgate does hold a lot of TV stuff with stars and things. I'm trying to go through what they all.
Yeah, they have some stuff there, and again, then it's a matter of what kind of brands is it that they have that can be monetized. But the challenge with Lionsgate is that they're a distributor more so than a production company. Yeah. So like the cool stuff that you associate with Lionsgate, they're not actually Lionsgate, and they wouldn't get them in a purchase.
Well, now isn't Starz actually owned by Universal anyway?
I don't actually know the answer to that. I know they do a lot of content creation for Stars. I mean,
I think it is owned by Universal.
Yeah. So yeah, but I'm thinking like Power and shows like that. I think are Lionsgate. Again, I could be wrong. I mean,
but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So that my point is I could see Lionsgate, if that's the case, getting soaked up by Stars and Universal before like that happened.
Oh no, absolutely. That would make
that's
more
much
sense.
more likely.
That would make a lot more sense.
Yeah. It would make complete sense for the Universal expanded group to pick up Lionsgate. That I can absolutely see. That's much more likely to me than that Netflix would do it.
And Comcast has money, so
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. So I would be more so, and I fully expect both Lionsgate and Sony to be sold because they don't have a leg to stand on.
Exactly
the way that things are moving. But the question is by who, and Comcast have a far better strategic reason for picking up the two, especially Lionsgate. And with that Millennium, I wouldn't be surprised if Comcast were to pick up, or rather New Image, because that's the corporate unit that Millennium is a part of.
Yeah, but I don't really see Universal having much reason for picking up Sony, though. So, like, I bet if Sony does sell, it'll end up being to Apple or Netflix.
Yeah, I agree with that. That Apple or Netflix would be the ones that would pick up Sony Pictures, whereas Millennium, New Image, and Lionsgate, that whole block, that's more of Comcast's.
And that's where I was asking as far as the Stars thing, because I can't remember how much control, or if any control, I think Stars bought in Lionsgate, because if they did, then that's where I was saying they could eventually just get soaked up into Universal, because that's basically what happened to New Line.
Yeah.
Because New Line got bought by Turner got bought by Warner Brothers, so then over the years Warner just basically soaked up New Line, and it's just a label now.
Yeah,
I tell you what, if I were Apple and I was trying to get serious quick, especially in light of all these, look good announcements that we're getting, I think Apple should buy Sony.
It would make perfect sense. It would get them both a television and a movie catalog right there.
Yeah,
and they would have all that money's like, because I mean they have iTunes already, so but they got to pay licensing fees or whatever for anything they sell on theirs. But so if it was a Sony thing though, and they bought it, that would be money directly into their pocket. The music aspect too. No, I haven't even thought about the music.
The music catalog would be huge for them
if they bought everything out. Like that would be. I could see Apple doing that, like going in and buying the music and entertainment part of Sony, and Sony would probably gladly sell that. And then that would just give Apple more control over music.
I don't know that they would do it gladly, but if
they might.
On the long-term side of things, would be glad, but I think they would hurt them at the beginning.
Yeah,
here's
that's
the
what
thing.
I mean.
Sony has gotten so to the point where they don't even really do much for electronics anymore. Like the PlayStation is like their main thing. Like I feel like if they did that, they'd turn around and they just sit there and concentrate on the PlayStation mainly, and they'd probably be just fine with that.
You think that they won't try to get the interactive group?
Who's that?
Anybody that tries to acquire them, they just would try to acquire Sony Pictures outright.
Sony would never. Sony would never sell the game department.
Okay, yeah, because that's a huge revenue source for them.
That's my point. Like that's what's been
without that, they're nothing.
They'd end up reverting back to their electronics company that they started out as,
which is nothing now. That's my whole point. Is everything else. The PlayStation department has basically been paying for the film department. The music side of things possibly has been paying for itself. But where's music been lately, guys?
I can tell you exactly what the Sony Corporation is without the PlayStation. Without that, they are a game developer and a game distributor, and that's it. The infrastructure around the PlayStation is what props up that entire company right now. That is their bread and their butter, and everything else is a nice bonus on the side that may or may not break even, that may or may not yield a small level of profit, or that has to be bolstered up by the PlayStation. Sony right now is the PlayStation company. They can't sell it, because if they sell that, they can just as well leave or shut down Sony altogether, because they don't have a company without the PlayStation.
No, because music ain't shit. And even though they're one of the only 3 major music conglomerates, or whatever you call it, the reason for that is because it wasn't lucrative enough for all the other music companies anymore to handle it. So they all just sold all their music off to Sony, MCA, and who's the other one?
Well, BMG, but
BMG, Sony.
but and that actually leads me to
though.
a question for Andre. To be honest with you, the Simon Schuster deal that being sold to BMG, do you think that deal is going to finish? Because I've started to freak out about that. Going, wait a minute, somebody's going to flip. Yeah, this may not happen.
Well, they got it for a fire sale.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in detail, but I do know that Viacom CBS, they want to offload it because they have to liquidize, they have to get some cash.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know too many details about who was the one who bought it and why they would do that. That's my question, is that someone probably at the other end probably needs to realize that, whoa, did we just buy a lemon here? Did we just buy something that we're never going to see a return on investment of? That's like the thing that surprises me. Like, who on earth would spend all that money on Simon and Schuster? Yeah, you get the catalog and stuff, but how can you monetize it? How can you monetize it to not only break even on your investment, but even profit of it in the not too distant future? That is something that I have a hard time seeing. So will the whole deal go through? Well, I bet that Viacom CBS desperately wants it to, and they probably hope that the other party won't change their minds.
Yeah, but, Sony is BMG, by the way. The other music company is Warner, which it's Warner, MCA, and Sony BMG.
Yeah, Bertelsmann. I'm sorry, Bertelsmann Media Group is the ones that put out $2.1 billion in cash.
What the fuck do they need with that? Unless they're doing audiobooks.
Yeah, well, you can do audiobooks, but how the hell are you going to profit of how are you you have to make more than 2.1 billion just to break even, and how are you going to do that with audiobooks? You have to do some investments to monetize it as well. How are they going to do that? That I don't see. I hope that they have a plan for it, although I don't see what it would be.
Yeah, it just occurred to me to ask, because I'm looking at that. I'm like, what? Bertelsmann spending an exorbitant or just a giant amount. That's a lot. That's a huge amount.
There's no way that the market for audiobooks is that big, because regular standard books are dead.
Yeah, I mean, their ownership of Penguin Random House. I mean, I don't know.
That might be what they're doing. Then they're doing what they did with the music. They're just conglomerating everything.
Yeah,
let's see.
But honestly, I don't know. I haven't paid too much attention to it that I really have an opinion about it. But just at first glance, I don't see how they're going to.
Hang on though. What kind of things does Simon and Schuster have under their, as far as I mean, I could see Sony using it as far as buying, it's easier than buying all the rights to all these stories and books, but they don't have anything. They don't have a Marvel or a DC or anything like that.
No, all their good stuff again is licensed.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the ownership of the books is not actually owned by most of the publishing companies.
And I don't see audiobooks being that big of an industry. So
basically what you get is the infrastructure, you get your print presses and stuff like that, or that is those that aren't
good is that for you?
Third copies as well. So you get some real estate, you get some heavy machinery, you're obviously going to get some titles and everything, but the really cool stuff, the people that associate with Simon and Schuster, that's all on license. You don't get the brand.
You get those contracts, but you have to monitor and update those contracts.
I'll tell you right now, the real estate may be worth something, but all the fucking facilities and shit, you're basically buying somebody else's problem.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing, and that's and of course, if it's in your business, then that's fine. But I don't know how you're gonna make that worth more than 2.1 billion for you. That sounds like a tall order.
Yeah, well, and again, that deal is predicated on the idea of creating a publishing Leviathan. I mean, their goal is to acquire all these authors, all these creators, and put them under fresh contracts to produce more content for them. I mean, that's essentially, they're going to be the content farm for all these television and film things, or that would be my guess. That's just a guess.
That's what I was thinking, but then again, that's where I was saying, how much could you possibly get out of that? I don't see how you could spread this out and make that much money in any amount of time to make it work. I don't. That's way too much. Way too much. How do they fit in this day and age? How does that? I don't get it.
I don't get it either, but I can only imagine that they must have run it through a business attorney. They must have a strategy behind it. They must have a plan for it. What that plan is, I do not see. But you don't go and make a $2.1 billion acquisition of a company that another corporation is desperate to get rid of without having a real good plan behind it. You just don't do that. So they must have a plan for it, and they must think that at a 2.1 billion price point, they're going to profit off it one way or the other. Although how that's going to happen is completely beyond me. But I can't imagine otherwise that they must have a plan, because remember,
I got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell them too, by the way.
Yeah, I have some really fine real estate in Norway up in the tundra that they can get for me for steal. And we can, some prime Norwegian tundra for, let's say, $1 million. Work something out. Yeah, I'll rent it.
10,000 acres, right?
Yeah. But anyway, no, I don't see what's their business model, but it must be one. There has to be something. But I'm honestly shocked that they would pay as much as $2 billion for it. Honestly, if I were to just haphazard guess the price, I wouldn't even say $1 billion. No, far from it. I would be like, what? 100 million, 200
because you're
million.
doing them a fucking favor.
Oh yeah, you are.
They sold. Think about the fact that they sold off Scene at a loss. They sold it for $750 million loss on its way out the door, and this is an insane. It was an insane thing. I'd wanted to get somewhere to ask this question to you, but I was like, this is insane.
Honestly, I don't understand. I think it's insane too, because for one thing, I was surprised that they found someone willing to buy it in the first place. Because here's a thing. I was always thinking that, okay, I haven't studied detailed Simon & Schuster, but what I do know is all their cool stuff is on license. So let's just say hypothetically that, fine, you get to keep the catalog, and even that may be a push or may even be a stretch, but you don't get the right to create any new works on those brands unless they renew the license. And then you have to have all the license fees, everything that goes with that. You're going to have all of the hardware and all the machine stuff that's rapidly becoming obsolete.
Oh yeah,
because who reads print anymore? So that someone would buy it, yeah, I can see that, but they would get it at a steal. I was thinking that if Viacom CBS could get as much as 100 million, which even I thought that's a ridiculously overpriced thing, and then they get 20 times that amount, it's a complete mystery to me. So yeah. It'll be interesting to see what they do with it, because I can't fathom it.
Anyway, well, thanks, Andre. I didn't mean to open that kettle of fish.
No, that's what I didn't know they were how we roll. That's what we do.
Yeah,
we open kettle.
Well, that answers where CBS got some fucking money from, anyway.
Yeah. Well, and think about it. It does help them out. I mean, you're looking at a $2 billion dent in that $19 billion hole. You know what I mean? I mean, they're that's money.
They need that.
Yeah. They probably can't believe their luck. They're they knew they had to sell, but they were like, oh my god, we don't have to sell at the loss. Someone is they're toasting right now over that thing still. Yeah. They're really hoping that none of that's going to go away. But anyway, let's get back to the super chats, because we weren't done with those. You already said the one from Phil Moore and from Tax Shark. And we addressed Miguel Hernandez, and then we have Matrose, who sent us 50 Swedish krona, tack så mycket, who says Boba will die as Mando. Mando takes the Boba name / armor to keep the child safe. That's an interesting prediction, and we shall know in just a few days. Who knows? We'll wait and see. And Jack Bauer says, I think there's a high likelihood Boba dies. If he does, Star Wars is dead to me. Bringing back a character after 40 years to kill him after 3 episodes?
Yeah, they did that in the sequel trilogy 3 times.
Yeah, and it sucked each and every one of them, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah. And Nathan Marchi says, please upload videos and streams to BitChute and or Rumble. I'm a huge fan of yours and want to keep watching, but not a fan of YouTube. You have been meaning to look into that, so thanks for reminding me. And Eski Monophono says, didn't Disney want Mulan to only release in theaters but changed it later? Could be misremembering. No, you're not. They originally wanted Mulan to be, of course, exclusively in theaters, and then they changed their minds when situation called for it. And you can bet that they're going to do the same thing with Black Widow if they decide that situation calls for that. Because as it is right now, the entire MCU is now 1 year behind schedule. And they're not gaining any more interest, I'd say. And the longer the time is with no MCU on screen, the more and more people are going to get over it. And as they get over it, it's going to get difficult to get into it. And I think they're challenged. Like script, you've said this before, like the person that wrote Black Widow, that's not the best of writers, is it?
Well, the person who wrote Black Widow, no, it's the person who wrote Wonder Woman is not the best of writers, and he's also writing Shang-Chi. Black Widow, I really haven't been paying much attention to in the last few months, just because it's too little, too late in my book. I mean, the movie should have been made and shot and released like 5 years ago. But no, I think Black Widow will probably do okay, but yeah. I mean, mostly in popularity. I don't know about the financial means of it. Like it's all up in the air right now. We have, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a day and date thing, and yeah, it's going to change the game. But for now, I'm not too worried about the quality of Black Widow. I think it's going to fit within the formula. It's Wonder Woman 84 and Shang-Chi that I have my reservations for, because
how about Shang-Chi? Is that more pandering to the Middle Kingdom?
Well, I mean, Disney thinks so, but that's not what China really responds to.
Yeah, we know that, but if they have made it so that that may not win them any favors with the audience if the movie is more overt propaganda. I don't know that it is, but if it is Mulan all over again, then that's it's not going to win them any popularity contest, is it?
Not with certain people, that's for sure. You were going to say something, Culture?
Oh no, it already got nailed. That's the problem, is you guys are, guys always get in front of me on stuff like that. But yeah, I just in regards to Black Widow, however, my interest in it has dwindled with the projections that went along with it. So there you are. And as far as Mulan's projections headed into even its theatrical release were starting to head downwards as well. So these two films were already going to fare very poorly.
Yeah, because
I see on the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Andre. Sorry.
Yeah, no, because I think that the challenge for the MCU is that, for one thing, it's been way too long a gap now with nothing from the MCU, and when content ramps up again, I think that we have a few projects that we just have to get through that no one really cares about until we get to like the interesting projects. I could be wrong. Maybe everybody loves WandaVision. Maybe that's going to be amazing. But I'm kind of the opinion that the thing that most people can get excited for is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And that's still a long time in the future.
Yeah, I think you're right there. The other part too that Marvel has over a lot of the other competing studios is they have a writers team group for their films. So even though Black Widow is coming out, it has here it is in the private chat. Jacqueline Schaefer, yeah. So she's a very new writer. She's only been around 11 years getting some stuff made, but she's not like all on her own on this. She's got all those other support groups. Same thing with Dave Callahan for Shang-Chi. They've got support systems and infrastructure for how the story's going. It's basically just kind of like a filling in the blank sort of job for them to on the worst side of things. On the best side of things for them, they actually have creative control, but we know Marvel and Disney aren't really big on that. So I think those movies will be okay, and I think that they're this is the first year we haven't gotten a Marvel film, so I think that's going to be reflective in the reboot of the series in 2021. I mean, we're going to see within that first week whether or not Marvel's back, or whether it was just the fans were riding on that high of that 10-year high of a Marvel movie coming out every year.
Yeah, indeed, that will be interesting to see. And moving on with the super chats, we're almost caught up now. Space Monkey 0899 says, Funimation in Sony Online. Can't you all for 1 billion? I'll bring anime in.
I don't have a spare billion.
What you're saying, but I do not have a spare billion, and if I did, I wouldn't be buying Funimation. But that's me.
Yeah,
I certainly would not donate it to Sony for them to buy Funimation.
They wouldn't do that either.
Sony already owns them. I think they bought them for $1 billion. Is that what he's saying?
I don't know.
Sony bought Crunchyroll. That's
okay.
I'm not sure.
Well,
I thought they already owned
Funimation.
I don't follow too much on the anime side of things.
I don't know how much they paid for Funimation, but I think they bought them a couple of years back. If I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong.
Yeah. Neil.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Sony bought Crunchyroll, and with Funimation, they have a monopoly over the anime industry distribution in the West. Okay. Yeah. Well, good for them. Personally, I honestly, I'm not into animation myself, so I hope that they do well. But someone else who's into animation would have to answer that. But that's actually. But going back to his point, I think that if you were to acquire Sony, then you would get the distribution rights to all of animation in the West. I'm sure that Netflix would like that, because that would mean that for anyone that likes anime, they would have to get it on Netflix, because it would be nowhere else.
Exclusivity.
So that's actually a good reason to buy Sony. That's actually a very, very good point. Not just for Netflix, but for Apple or for anyone that thinks that there's a market for animation. And there is absolutely, but you would get that in addition to the TV catalog with the Sony acquisition. So good point.
Interestingly enough, the going back to the announcement for the Star Wars projects, I think Visions is an anime style presentation.
It is.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So.
Well, and the funny thing, people keep saying it's a monopoly. I don't know if you could put that tag on it, because they're not making the anime; they're just distributing it. So,
and I think they're also doing the English dubs as well, which is a lot cheaper than just making the full anime.
Well, my point is that they're not stopping anybody else from getting into the game.
That's true.
Necessarily, unless they have exclusive rights to these deals, then there may be an argument to be made. But again, that's going to be one thing going forward with all these streaming services. The exclusivity of everything is going to be, you're only going to be able to see certain things in certain places. So you're going to have to pick, especially if you're somebody who's on a budget and can't afford 12 streaming services, which most of us can't. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, we can't afford cable in most places anymore. How are we going to afford more than 2 or 3 streaming services is beyond me. But regardless, that's going to be the big thing, though, is you're going to have to break down, or you're going to have to bounce around, or, sail the high seas. But if you do, what should you do, Andre?
Well, you should get Surfshark VPN, and you should use the code MIDNIGHT when you order. That's what you should do for universally for stuff like that. that'll sort out any geo-blocking restrictions, and if you want to do what we say that you should not do, and what Surfshark says that you also should not do, namely sailing the high seas, but if you want to do it anyway, then you need to protect your security, and Surfshark kind of does that. So yeah.
I use Surfshark. It's awesome.
Likewise.
Exactly. There you go. So you see here, you have 4 and 4 people on the panel recommend you use Surfshark and check out with the code Midnight. And you get a really nice deal for it as well. You get like months off for free. And with that plug out of the way, we have a couple of more super chats before we're fully caught up. Next one was from Roof Korea 92. I love that name. What happens with the sword of Damocles hanging over the studios as far as production costs, actor salaries, and equipment? Disney Plus can't pay for it all. Script and
well,
our guests, what do you think of this? I want to hear what you have to say about this.
Well, Disney has a plan. The Mandalorian is the example of the future. It's basically cost-cutting. I mean, it's very expensive to build, but in the long run, it's a cost-cutting and time-saving endeavor with their stagecraft technology that they own outright so far.
Yep.
And they said in their investors meeting that they're constructing newer studios of this, and the goal is that with this stagecraft, every studio can operate 24/7, and have multiple productions going on almost at the same time. And the reason being is you don't need to build massive sets. You just need your key points, your props, your costumes, your actors, your crew. That can all be brought in about 2-3 hours, set up. You start rolling, and then you take it all down, you leave, and then another production comes in right afterwards and can do the exact, and they don't have to rebuild anything on the inside. They just got to do their sets and start rolling camera. And because the post-production process is also cut back exponentially because of the stagecraft, you end up rolling out more production. So I think Disney is planning to use that technology as a means to rent out to other film productions to make an additional income and offset some of their costs over the long term. And it's going to revolutionize film because you no longer have to fly gear and people all over the world for location shoots. You can just bring the location to you. And depending on the size of the stagecraft, whether it be like the normal studio that they have right now for The Mandalorian, which is still pretty big, or they do something as big as what Pinewood does with their big like airplane hangar, you can do a lot with that technology and make a lot of money out of it over the very long term. And it's upgradable. It's very easily upgradable too. So yeah, production is not going to be the same as what used to be anymore. It's going to be a lot cheaper to get things going. And as a result, they're going to be able to justify lower budgets with still the same quality. There's going to be an argument from some creatives because they want that tangibility of the realness. But it's not going to win out in the long run. It's going to go in this digital direction, and it's going to be very lucrative for the studios. I would say within 10 years, they're going to start seeing some huge return on that for lower budgets.
Absolutely. And actually, that's funny because I'm doing a members video on that to talk at length about the process, everything that they're going through, and the really even though we're just barely crawling into actual legitimate digital production, everything that's associated with this and all of the efforts that they're putting forward towards it, including the construction of new facilities in a state that isn't California. So yeah, the simple fact that you'll have 6 to 8 post-production crews on site ready to help create in real time any asset that you need in the background, it gives the actors something to act against, and you end up with a final shot even right there on the soundstage. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that in addition to Disney Plus is a huge potential source of revenue to Disney. As you mentioned, that they like own this technology, and there's going to be many people that make like spin-offs and everything, but they can do this first. They're like building a separate facility and like lease that out to their competitors. All they have to do is basically just price out the competition, but still bake in a fat revenue for them, and everyone kind of wins. Then they get to profit off of their competitors' movies and productions, and it's still going to be cheaper for those competitors to do with Disney Mando style than the traditional style. So I agree, that is absolutely the future of special effects filmmaking. You can do anything. I mean, everyone knows that I'm like completely hyped about like this Conan thing that I hope is going to be awesome on Netflix. Even with that, imagine how much money can be saved with that, with like ancient ruins and everything like that.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It's perfect for it. You can film everything right there, and yeah.
See, the only flaw that stagecraft has to overcome, and it's something that I wasn't thinking about prior to, but after seeing this recent episode of The Mandalorian, I realized, oh boy, they have to figure out their perspective and distance timing when it comes to, say, a car chase, because they had this scene where the Mandalorian's on top of a juggernaut transport truck, and it's moving away, but the background is not in proper sync of being distanced out from the object. So it looks almost like the background's moving slower than the actual action that's happening on the physically. Yeah, so they got to figure that part out too, which I think is probably a little bit trickier because it requires probably a lot more computer power to mimic the real life thing of backgrounds traveling.
Yeah, believe it or not, script, that's just merely a setting in the software. And somebody didn't do that right. That's all that was.
Yeah. But you know what the beauty is? When you have the Mandalorian and they're doing stuff like that, that's kind of like beta testing. There you see, okay, this is something that we need to work on. Here we need to like hook that setting and put in that script code to sort that out. And the only way to find out stuff like that is actually by using it. And right now, the technology it's not just being like used on the Mandalorian, it's being like perfected by the Mandalorian, because I'm sure that they're going to notice that.
Yeah.
Well, and it's amazing because this is another thing you can say thank you to Jon Favreau and the folks over at ILM for creating, because and this is why the Mando is the perfect place for this to be being done. I mean, we talk about putting everything in the right place for one person all the time. Jon Favreau is essentially the guy that he's the George Lucas of his time with ILM right now, because this is ultimately ending up to be his baby. And if anybody is going to know how to utilize this technology the best, at least for a while, it's going to be him.
Well, I mean, I would say it's more Jon Favreau's spouse, because like ILM has been working on this for about 20 years. Jon Favreau is just the first guy to actually get to play with it and have the relationship with it. So he is going to be the expert on the directing side of things for this.
Sleeping with it.
Yeah, kind of. No, you're right. That's a better way to describe it.
Because it's still because George Lucas pitched this idea in I think 1999.
Yeah,
it's like we need to be able to do live interactions with the background, and the first version of this was for their Star Wars TV series that they filmed most of, that they never happened, where it was all in camera. So the actors were still acting against the green screen, but the director could see the background in real time with those actors.
Right.
And now they've come full circle where now the background and the actors are all in real time, and everybody can see everything, and you're photographing it right into the camera live. And that's just a really, really useful tool.
Well, in new digital asset placement on top of, like, let's say you have a light pole, but you don't know what the light pole is going to look like until you make it to the production stage. They in real time can replace that, so the actor will have a physical element to interact with on that stagecraft stage, but at the same time it'll be generated 3-dimensionally, for everybody else outside of that. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. The tech is ridiculous. It really
well, and then to go back to the original question, beyond just the tech part, we've already talked about this a few times. First things first, the actors are going to have to learn, at least the big actors, as far as like your Tom Cruises and all that kind of stuff, are going to have to learn to take a pay cut, and they're going to have to find other ways to amortize the costs that those people are going to call for. And the same thing probably goes with directors and other big talent across the board are going to have to learn to take a pay cut. I think a lot of crews and the way they're run are going to be downsized, even though a lot of the guilds and the unions are not going to be too happy about it. But it's things are going to have to change all around until things can get back to a point where they're making enough money to do movies and shows the way they were. That's just the way it's going to have to be. You're going to see movies take on a lot of the same elements TV shows do, and TV shows are going to even slimline a lot more than they already were. So it's going to get weird for a while, but I do think that this technology is going to be a big part of a lot of this for sure.
Well, and it's going to make stars out of just people who have, just background talent. I mean, it's the normal background actors are going to be people that'll move into leading roles if they have the chops. I mean, you're going to see a lot of unknowns, move to the forefront because they're going to be willing to take roles for less pay. So,
yeah, exactly. Well, actually, that's something that I'm excited about. The infusion of new talent that we're going to get because of this, because many people I think are going to price themselves out, and I'm excited about the prospects of what that actually could bring.
Yeah.
And Roger Haynes, he sent us a super sticker of a thumbs up, so thanks so much. And Space Monkey, who sent us the earlier super chat about this Funimation thing that was a bit hard to decipher, he sent us another super chat saying, "Sorry, text to speech made me sound like Yoda, but you got my point." Well, thanks for clarifying. Yeah, that's what the beauty. There were enough.
Hey, the fact that you're a space monkey and you can speak, that means wonders.
That's awesome. The Space Monkey, by the way, was the best thing with a Netflix series, Space Force. Like the only good thing about it.
Never even got a chance to check it out.
Yeah, there's no need to. There's no need to check
there
it
really
out.
Isn't.
Yeah, such a waste of promise. And there were a couple of cool things in it, but not worth it. And if we never get the second sequel or a second season, I'm perfectly okay with that.
I think it got greenlit. But
it did get greenlit. I think they're in production, or they just wrapped production. I don't know. Unfortunately, we're getting more of that, and I think we're also getting more of Avenue 5, which is also horrible.
Is it? It looks cool. But
it looks cool. It's just a frustrating comedy because everybody's incompetent. But you still have that Michael Burnham-esque type character who's played by an actress who she's a bit more likable, but she's in the exact same position of trying to solve all the problems and being the only one to do so. The only obstacle is the fact that everybody else around her is very incompetent. So it's a frustrating show. The performances are good.
But I was looking forward to Avenue 5. Oh crap. Okay, well, fine. So I have to
watch the pilot. If you're sucked in by the pilot, you might enjoy the rest of the series. But I was like, really, these are all kind of like lazy jokes.
Okay. Oh well, that sucks. Well, I'm glad to be aware of that. Then maybe I won't waste time getting invested into that. And speaking of failed writing and stuff, our final super chat that we haven't gone through yet. Aaron C says, "Speaking of writers groups, how is the Lucasfilm story group still a thing?" I wonder that myself, because the few members that we have heard speak out in public, what a useless bunch they are. And they seem to be about as well connected with canon as the supposed experts that Alex Kurtzman hired in to oversee canon on Star Trek Discovery. Fat lot of good they did. So guys, let's begin with you, Culture. How is Lucasfilm Story Group still a thing?
They in some ways they aren't, because some of the people being brought in to write some of these programs that they presented have no ties to the story group. They will reach out and find information from them from time to time, from what I'm to understand. The people that are more closely related to the Kathleen Kennedy projects, again, we're talking about the Agent of Chaos here. Those they have a little more influence into those things, and more of their story elements will make it into those things. At least that's the takeaway that I have from where that is. As far as why they still exist, I don't know, because any and everything that they have presented has been soundly rejected by the longtime fans and not easily adopted by the people that they're trying to bring into the party to begin with.
Yeah, I would also like to add one more thing.
Sure.
That when Lucasfilm took over, they basically said that that Legends is no longer canon, or the EU is no longer canon, which I thought was unnecessary, because I don't think that anyone really expected what happened in this Dark Horse comic here from 10 years ago is something that would be treated as canon on screen. But what they stupidly went and said is that they made it clear that is no longer canon, whereas everything that is coming from here on out, every comic, every book, every game, all of it is canon. It's all building up towards the same thing. Didn't take long before you started having retcons in the comics and in the books, and especially with the Rise of Skywalker, so they can't even keep their own new canon straight. So I have to say that this particular story group is pretty useless. And just like Kevin Feige did with like the Marvel story group, he got rid of them for the MCU. Someone really needs to get rid of this group as well, because I don't know what's happening behind the scenes there, but at least in terms of the output that we do see, I don't see that they're doing a very good job at it.
Yeah, well, like the department of the story group will always exist. It's just you have to get new people involved. Like Kevin Feige got rid of the old people really quick and then brought in the whole new group of teams, and it's constantly a rotating staff. Like that's what makes it fresh. That's why the Marvel films are. Oh, we lost Andre.
He'll be back.
And that's why the Marvel films are sticking to their formula, and they have a kind of like a baseline of quality. And the reason the story group in Lucasfilm exists is because Disney is trying to copy the Marvel model over to Lucasfilm, and they're doing it out of desperation. So they're just making the departments and filling those roles as quickly as possible so that they can get that infrastructure that Lucasfilm didn't have prior. And we're seeing that their rushing attitude towards that has really done more harm than good. So yeah, like the story group they have now, those people, they're not qualified for this genre. They're probably qualified for a lot of other things and other genres, other shows, but not Star Wars, and they will need to have to be replaced. But until Disney's willing to expand their horizons with the types of writers and creatives that they want for their show, we're going to be stuck with this group for a while, as long as Kathleen Kennedy's in charge too.
Very good.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if they get any work with all these new shows that are happening.
And then we also had a question from Martin Allen. Do you think deep fake will get more popular?
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of new things they can do with the deep faking. Not only it's also going to save time on special effects makeup, because say they just get an actor and they cast a stone of their head, and then the special effects guys can put on like a prosthetic on that stone part, do a deep fake scan of it, and because the algorithm technology can move the artificial sculpt on its own, the actor just has to go on camera, do their scenes, and then the deep fake can be layered over top of that without any makeup prosthetics.
And they can do it in real time.
Yeah, and plus it can be done in real time, and on top of that as well, any sort of issues that they have in camera with that asset, they can tweak in post-production. So no one has to go, like, you don't even have to put makeup on the actor and then do a deep fake scan of them first. You just have to do it on the model of their face, of a physical model of their face that you've already cast in stone that they do anyways, and you're kind of good to go. It's really remarkable. It's going to get better before it gets worse, and the only thing deepfake really has to worry about is the profiling, like when an actor turns their face 90 degrees away from the camera, because that's where you can kind of catch the flaws more than anything else.
Yeah. On that note, first of all, I have to say that I agree completely. More than that, if you go back to an earlier episode of Midnight's Edge in the Morning, actually, Midnight's Edge in the Morning, episode 13, there we had filmmaker and special effects artist extraordinaire Gary J. Tunnicliffe on, and he's a big proponent of deep faking and what that can do. So go check that out, because there we had the full episode devoted to it. And that's basically the same thing that he was saying. And he is someone that has spent his career, or much of his career, I should say rather, applying makeup effects to actors. And he says the same thing that you say. What you can do here is that you apply the makeup once, and then you photograph it from every single angle in really, really high resolution. And after that first day, you deep fake it onto the actor, instead of making like 60 to 100 sets of appliances that aren't cheap, that are to be glued on every single day. So I think that deep faking will be very, very popular going forward. So you're going to have a situation where you have the Mando backgrounds and you have deep faked foregrounds and actors. And not only that, you can even like deep fake the appearances of actors at certain ages. Like, for instance, say that Gal Gadot, she can do like a scan and of herself.
She
and
can
then
play
you
Wonder
can
Woman for
deep
40
fake-
years. Yeah.
Yeah, you can deep fake herself at her current age the next 20 years going forward. Same as everyone. That's like a thing with like many actors and stuff, especially for like genre roles that they tend to like age out of their roles. Well, with deep faking, that need not be a problem. And of course, you can't go back and do it anymore because you don't have the footage for all the ankles and everything. So, like, there's like a limit to like, for instance, making Arnold Schwarzenegger look like he did in 1984, back during the Terminator 1 era. There's only so much you can do with that. But you go to a proper facility and film an actor today in every angle and every kind of scan that they need. Like, sky's the limit for what they can do in the future with stopping time.
Yeah.
It's really really impressive, but it also gives the makeup artists a little bit extra time, because sometimes they get a project just maybe a few weeks before it actually goes into production, with regards to like they get their concepts and then it's greenlit, but then they can say, you know what, since I don't have to keep on applying this makeup over and over and over again, and they're maybe able to spend more time on the shooting side of things than push back their start date just a little, I get those extra days or weeks to really make this one prosthetic that I have to make the best one I can, with all the fine details and everything that can really show up on that scan. And then you end up having just working on one piece, as opposed to having to make replicas of that over and over, because they make the initial appliance, then they put cast a mold over top of it to make copies. And now they don't even have to do that. They just have to focus on the one. So they're saving themselves a lot of time on the after part of that for the copies.
Oh, absolutely.
And going straight into like that final project, the final output in the first go. And it's really great. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. And I'll say this just to add to that very quickly, that and the ability to do the 3D scan that everybody's referencing here, but for in that same circumstance script, they're actually able to recreate those appliances many, many, many times because of 3D printing. Because once that appliance has been scanned, they can reprint it in Filaflex or any other type of material that's flexible and get exactly the same look in the same way every single time, in the same shape, same size, etc. It's amazing.
Yeah, there you go. And moving on, we had sending us a diamond super sticker, so thank you for that. And then we had the final super chat of the day, I think. Roof Korean 92 again says, your opinions on S. Craig Zalid writing / directing. Again, I will leave it to our panel, to our guests.
Bone Tomahawk is still creepy and well done. So yeah, I dig him so far.
I'm not too familiar with his work, honestly, so I don't have an opinion. So I'll defer to your expertise on this one.
I've seen the Puppet Master one he did. I have Bone Tomahawk, but I haven't seen it yet. Otherwise, I don't know much of his work.
Me either. I think he did some kind of a Western thing.
Bone Tomahawk,
and I think
Brawl and Cell Block 99, Puppet Master, Littlest Reich, Dragged Across Concrete. Those are all the movies he's written. And he's directed the last three, Bone Tomahawk, Brawl and Cell Block 99, and Dragged Across Concrete are the ones he's directed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I said, I haven't seen Bone Tomahawk yet, but yeah.
Yeah, and again, I'm not familiar with his work. I don't know that I've seen a single thing that he's done, so I cannot. I have no opinion on the subject. And with that, I do believe I'm going to do a double check here, but I do believe that we are probably fully caught up.
All right. And as far as this goes, Anthony, it's all up to the estates.
Yep.
So basically, if an estate says that if Elvis's estate says they can use him in a deep fake deal and use him to sell soap, there's nothing we can do.
We're going to see some Elvis soap.
Yeah,
Oh,
there we go.
that's
That's
He's all
exactly
soaked
how
up.
it is. Yeah. So, but again, that's something that can be addressed right now by the actors and their agents. But for things in the past, it's entirely up to the estate. And if the estate is willing to get some extra money, then yeah, you're gonna get Pink Panther Part 6 starring Peter Sellers and Elvis soap. And yeah, all other ridiculous like that. So yeah, just wait for it. Good times. Speaking of good times, I would like to thank our two distinguished guests for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to have you on, as always.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And-
Thanks so much for inviting
Yeah, I
me
truly
and
appreciate.
Culture.
Yeah, I truly appreciate the invite, and I love to hang out with everyone here. So it's a win-win for everybody, including our audience. So thank you.
Well, and speaking of our audience, I want to thank them. The reason the show went as long as it did, and we had so much to talk about, is you guys are asking so many great questions in the chat, and the super chats, of course, do so much to help us here at the channel. We do appreciate that. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. And with that, thanks again, and have a great day.